Think about the last time you overreacted to something small, not something catastrophic, something minor. Someone was a few minutes late, or they said something with the wrong tone, or they didn't check in when you expected them to. And something inside you fired up way beyond what the situation called for. You probably explained it away. Too tired, too stressed, just a bad day. But here's what actually happened. Your brain wasn't responding to what just happened. It was responding to something that happened to you when you were 5 years old. In 1994, a physician named Vincent Felitti was running an obesity clinic at Kaiser Permanente in San Diego. His program was working. But something kept happening that he couldn't explain. Patients were dropping out right as they were succeeding, not when things got hard. When things were going well. Felitti started interviewing the dropouts. He asked about their childhoods. What he found stopped him. The majority had experienced adverse events before the age of 18. Not always dramatic abuse, sometimes just neglect. A parent who drank. A household where tension never resolved. Chronic unpredictability, never knowing what version of a parent you'd come home to. Felitti brought in epidemiologist Robert Anda from the CDC. Together they surveyed over 17,000 people. What they found wasn't subtle. People with 4 or more adverse childhood experiences were 460% more likely to suffer from depression. 1,200% more likely to attempt suicide. They called it the ACE study. Published in 1998, and when it landed, it quietly changed how medicine understood the human body. Because here's what those numbers actually mean. Your childhood isn't just a story you carry around. It's a biological event that rewired your nervous system. To understand how, you need to know one thing about the brain you were born with. At birth, your cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and regulating emotion, won't fully develop until your mid-20s. But your amygdala, the part that detects threat, fully online from the very beginning. This means that during your first decade, every experience gets processed by a brain still learning what the world is like, and building its entire architecture around that conclusion. In 1978, developmental psychologist Mary Ainsworth ran a series of experiments called the Strange Situation. She watched how toddlers responded when their caregiver briefly left the room and came back. Children didn't all react the same way. Some ran to the returning parent, calmed down, and went back to playing. Others clung and couldn't be soothed. Others pretended not to care, even though their cortisol levels spiked just as high. The difference wasn't personality, it was relational history. Learned before the age of 2. Those children had already decided something. Either that the world was safe enough to trust, or that it wasn't. That conclusion didn't stay in childhood. It became a blueprint. Psychiatrist John Bowlby called these internal working models. Mental maps of how relationships work, whether people can be trusted and whether you are worth being cared for. Built from experience before you had words for experience, and they don't disappear when you grow up. They show up in how you respond when someone you love pulls back slightly, in how a short reply reads as rejection, in why asking for help feels humiliating, in why being loved by someone stable makes you vaguely anxious, like you're waiting for something to go wrong. Neuroscientist Bessel Kolk spent 30 years studying what repeated early stress does to the body. His conclusion: the brain encodes those experiences not as memories you can examine, but as automatic physical states. Your chest tightens before you've had a conscious thought. You shut down or go rigid. Your body is pattern matching against things it stored decades ago, and it doesn't wait for your permission. None of this requires what most people picture when they hear the word trauma. Researchers now use the term small t trauma, the chronic, low-grade experiences that accumulate silently. A parent who was emotionally unavailable, not out of cruelty, but exhaustion. A home where conflict repeated but never resolved. Being told to stop crying. being praised only for achievement, never just for existing. Growing up with a persistent feeling that you were somehow too much, or not quite enough. Developmental neuropsychologist Allan Schore found that the circuits responsible for emotional regulation are built in the first 3 years of life, shaped directly by the emotional environment around you. Not metaphorically. Architecturally. The circuits built then are the ones you're running on now. And here's what makes all of this so hard to see. The adaptations that formed in childhood don't feel like wounds. They feel like personality. You don't think, I have a fear of abandonment rooted in early inconsistency. You think, I just hate it when people take forever to reply. You don't think, I learned that expressing need leads to rejection. You think, I'm just independent. I've always handled things alone. You don't think, I'm bracing for the moment this good thing falls apart. You think, I just don't get too attached. I like my space. You don't think, I need to earn my place in every room I walk into. You think, I'm just driven. I have high standards for myself. You don't think, I can't receive care without flinching. You think, I'm just not great at accepting compliments. Never have been. You don't think I keep people close enough to need me so they can't leave. You think I'm just naturally a giver. I like taking care of people. You don't think I over-explain because being misunderstood once felt dangerous. You think I'm just thorough. I like making sure people understand me. Those aren't personality traits. They're strategies, brilliant, effective strategies that kept you regulated in a childhood environment that required them. The problem is, they're still running in an adult life where that original environment no longer exists. You adapted to a world you no longer live in. In 2002, psychologist Ed Tronick ran a study now called the Still Face Experiment. A mother sits across from her infant, warm and responsive. The baby is completely alive with it. Then, on cue, the mother goes blank. No expression. No movement. Just a still face. Within seconds, the baby works frantically to get her back, smiling harder, pointing, reaching. When nothing works, the baby collapses inward, withdraws. When the mother re-engages, even the baby takes time to recover. The rupture leaves a trace. Tronick's point was simple. The relational environment doesn't just affect how a child feels in the moment. It teaches the nervous system what to expect from other human beings. You were that baby once. Somewhere in you is still the version of yourself that decided the world was safe or wasn't. That you were enough or weren't. That connection was reliable or wasn't. You built an entire adult life on top of that original conclusion. And most of the time you can't see it, because you're too busy being the person it made you. Your childhood doesn't still hurt because you remember it painfully. It hurts because it happened to a brain still being built. And that brain built itself around it. You're not still in childhood, but your nervous system thinks you might be.